Clinical governance is the topic of the next panel. So it includes several different departments from the hospital, from the management to the administrative and care departments. The value of care and the measuring tools are so important within this environment, as well as education, training, organic involvement of the teams in each step of the management process. Pedro Benedito, the Executive Director of Prevent Senior, Alexandre Siciliano from Pró-Cardíaco Hospital, Mr. Rabelo from Dalben Home Care, and also Mr. Faria from the Transition Group. So let's talk about it in the clinical governance room. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to be here with you this afternoon. Welcome to one of the other panels of fees. And my name is Mr. Batista Jr., and I have the mission of moderate this panel on clinical governance, which is extremely required, and we have two experts on the topic here in this panel. I'm very pleased to be here with Alexandre Siciliano, a benchmark in vascular and cardiac surgery in Brazil. He's in charge of the specialty in Pró-Cardíaco, the America system in Rio de Janeiro, researcher and enthusiast of using of clinical protocols and improving the journey of the patient. Welcome. Thank you. I'm very pleased to be here. We are pleased to welcome you. And we also have Rogério Rabelo. He is a healthcare management investor and director and partner of the Dalben Home Care Group. He is coordinator of the Brazil-Canada Chamber, and his assistant has been showing how to effectively organize the actions of the clinical follow-up. Welcome. Thank you, Pedro. I'm very pleased to attend this interesting debate with all of you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's clear that in the healthcare system, clinical governance is key, and we apply the hospital management and clinical management systems oriented to the quality of home care and healthcare, better saying, provided to patients. And this is used both international and domestic level. This concept dates back to the United Kingdom based on the England healthcare model. The British model used that, which results in continuous improvement in the quality of service. When we talk about continuous improvement in healthcare, it's clear that there are several changes in therapies and scientific techniques that needs to be incorporated in the system. This provides improvement for the care of the patients. And the final question we have today, Rogério and dear Alexandre and Siciliano, is how to apply that to healthcare management to truly deliver value. In alphabetical order, I will first invite Alexandre to explain his perspective on clinical governance. Excellent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an enormous honor and satisfaction to be here as a healthcare professional representing the group of the Americas, and I am in the clinical management position. And I know that I learned lessons passes through these ways. We have the NHIS perspective that talks about the definition of the clinical governance, because this is absolutely a single, very particular concept, and different authors defined it in different perspectives. But I believe in AsQ talks about the value delivered for the patients, and all those that are part of this delivered services, healthcare providers, staff, management, staff, family members include the journey of the patient at the hospital setting, and I believe this is truly something adequate according to my perspective. Dr. Berek, the former president of NIH, is one of this person that is working in the leadership and providing his vision and perspective in terms of value. In some of the presentations that I attended, he mentioned something that really caught my attention. Inside all those aspects we have currently on these days, he mentioned that in the physician perspective, sometimes we are focusing on efficacy and delivered of the product, and we have a dialogue which has a positive impact for a patient. But Dr. Derek talked about the other domains of quality that includes not only efficacy as well as the system access, basic conditions, efficiency. He mentioned a statement that really was a landmark for me. We physicians are able to deal directly with the patients and understand everything which is at stake. And if we do not take into account the need of supporting the healthcare system, this vision is within the medical field and management and administrative aspects in the post-industrial level, and this will have a direct impact in the quality of the care supplied to the patient. So the involvement of the professionals in a healthcare setting in enhancing the communication with the managers and decision makers at the best interest of the patients and the society as well is a very adequate definition that we have been seeing as clinical governance. In this sense, clinical governance is a tool for change management, because in the post-industrial area, in which absolutely everything that was viewed in terms of resources for investment, the working processes in place, and this is difficult to be incorporated in the patient's journey because these are biological systems, interdependent systems. It's not simple to have just the math of more service. So the clinical governance, in my perspective, there is this window between the physician and the manager and the administrators that should be centered on the best interest of the patients. So you have a background in your studies in the United States. Major clinical practices used at the clinical governance level there are even more complex to be introduced in a highly heterogeneous system as Brazil. So in your opinion, based on what you could bring from your knowledge from there to Brazil, what would be the best actions? Because we are talking about processes, so we will look at the patient as a movie, not as a picture, so to speak. I believe this helps me to perform the rationale about the health organization, and we have the clinical auditing, risk management processes, effectiveness, efficiency, transparency, people management, and operational research. So it shows the model we have been implementing here from this experience abroad, not only as an intern at Cleveland Clinic, but also as a student and fellow in Harvard University. We had a chance to practice at the institutional level this model where we could have two domains, the domain of leadership and the domain of management. Inside the leadership in a very straightforward way be able to build actions in an environment with major psychological safety and accountability. So we empower people, we allow them to make errors, but we understand that the learned lessons will be a result of this psychological safety and accountability we have in place in the setting. And we should have a highly trustworthy system in place in delivering results, and no one is afraid of showing that some things can be improved and there are opportunities for that. The other aspect is connected with this the Excel lines, input and output lines, but in variations in costs, quality, deliveries, safety is not perceived as a major potential of value generation. So address the variation of results, viewing that this value is going to be found when we have the opportunity to acknowledge this variation, in addition to the integration in a system of skills and abilities that we have some skills that are controlled, so this will not make the model infeasible. So this is the type of governance system we would like to have in place. Highly safe in psychological terms and with high level of trustworthiness. And a systemic approach between skills and integration, this would be the model that I would like to express here, how we want to implement it at Pró-Cardíaco in Rio de Janeiro. I like when we mention that simply we do not have any issues of changing things. People need to express when something is not correct. And when we do not have this ability in the system and all professionals could work in order to improve the system, it can cast the clinical governance system and limit that. And you mentioned this is key. When we talk about clinical governance, hospital settings, and you are in charge of managing two follow-up systems. And normally people forget to insert inside the clinical governance model the treatment of the patient. Normally they deliver the patient to you and they believe they can forget it, but your system is key towards the evolution and involvement of the parents, relatives of the patient. So tell us about your approach, involving your system, what needs to be involved, which is the relatives and the patient.
Great, Pedro. Thank you very much for your point. I always mention Luisa Dalben, our founder at Dalben, a pioneer who started the company in the 90s. And she always says discharge has to be started when the patient is admitted. And Dalben Group focuses on that, on providing post-acute care once the patient is discharged from a high complexity center. And we have a rehab center, with transition service, as well as home care. And the management of post-acute care is essential. As you very well pointed out, it is essential not only for the final outcome that we are going to obtain, succeeding in discharging the patient, and the new payment models, which are value-based, in which continuity of care and avoidance of additional admission will be performance indicators. And this is used in different systems all over the world, and this has been considered in Brazil as well. And you have shared a key challenge because we have to intervene in the continuity of care of patients. Right from the moment the patient is admitted to discharge moment, and we are going to discuss with the patient, clinical staff, what is the safety required for a rehab center or an intermediate unit? And clinical governance is something continuous. It depends on the information of the hospital, also clinical governance of payers, and Pedro does it beautifully at Prevent Senior, because the payer influences also this continuity of care of patients. And clinical governance applies to all different links of the chain: a large hospital, a healthcare plan, integrated services in a verticalized unit. And right now I am in the post-acute care. If my system and my model of governance involving technicians, protocols, continuous measurement, do not get integrated with the hospital and the next steps, it's not going to work. And the family, as you very well pointed out, as the patient leaves high complexity in which asymmetry of information is greater, as the patient migrates to post-acute rehab and home care, family is even more important. So Luisa was a pioneer in bringing social workers to the company. It happens in other areas, in other hospitals, but managing the company and integrating the company, as we've heard from the NHS system, communication is not multidisciplinary within the team, but also the family has a key role to play. I would like to highlight something which is really important, because when we see post-acute care in Brazil, it's still something starting, and you've seen it in the public and in the private market, because these are some things which are non-existent, and we have to have it integrated. We have to do the right thing at the right time, at the right moment, with the right team. And to that, we have a multiplicity of devices that have to be applied. In your previous question, you talked about value, the quality of clinical outcome of the patient. Some clinical outcomes cannot be obtained in a high complexity hospital. It's much more effective to go to a rehab hospital. Similarly, just antibiotic in the vein does not need a rehab center. We just need home care twice every week. And so on and so forth. We can have optimization of resources, and we can combine things. And home care is a pioneer in telemedicine, telesupport, and something which I think is key. Clinical governance now with medicine and everything that has been provided, essential to be once again one more tool within what we do with patients. We can also define very clear rules of governance. At Dalben, we have a very important support center interacting with the families, so reference nurse, physicians, and remote access is the first way to get to the families. And then there are other ways of having home visits. So the integration of telehealth in our model of clinical governance is another model that post-acute care used to do over the phone. It has always been part of our home care teams. And the main challenge of what we experience in hospitals, let alone if you have one hospital in each home and hundreds of patients distributed. So managing teams is extremely important. I had a previous experience in Canada and in Fleury group. I come from a lab facility. And in this concept, when we talk about combining tools for continuous improvement of quality, for total quality, we have to bear in mind that most companies have been using it for decades. A clinical lab, for example, in the area of healthcare, is where we have the best sigma, the number of errors per million events. Labs work within 4 sigma, ideally 6 sigma, only 3.4 errors per 1 million. So 3,000 errors per 1 million. Losing, for example, luggage in an airport is 6,000 per 1 million. So when we go into healthcare much more complex, it's very scary. So for example, a healthcare event may lead to a higher risk than losing your luggage in the airport. Wow, it's too much, isn't it? So we have to bring about these tools of continuing improvement methodologies. And I think we should objective that even in clinical medicine, we can get to 4, 5, 6 sigma. This is the idea, striving towards zero errors. And to do that, we need systems and we need teamwork. From the overall perspective, the contribution of post-acute care and its integration in models of governance of all players is essential and very important in Brazil. I like this model because we have to get a lot of the essence of our understanding and share with everyone who's watching us. It is a quick, dynamic model. And based on that, let me get one point that each of you made. Let's talk about integration. And I'm going to use my experience here at Prevent Senior. Alexandre and Rogério were invited because we all work together. I work with both of them at Prevent Senior, thanks to the system they coordinate, and I am quite familiar with their models, and it's very easy to work with these models. When we talk about a verticalized provider in 2020, we have to understand that verticalization is much more of process, of concept, focused on technology, so that information can be fully integrated. So, if there is a demand at Pró-Cardíaco in Rio of Prevent Senior patients who is referred to Dalben, so we need an integration of models among our 3 organizations so that patients do not lose all the essence of treatment that had been done since the very beginning. This is the best way of clinical governance. And at all the points of contact, it's a new opportunity to perform better clinical governance and keep on improving processes. And now I'll give you 2 more minutes for for drawing your considerations. Alexandre?
Pedro, acho que bastante enriquecedor, né? As visões sobre governança clínica que a gente teve a oportunidade.
Quite clear to hear from you and to talk about clinical governance, such an interesting thing. I agree with Rogério. It's really important to evolve together with technology. We need really to be able to deal with such complexity, and we need systems to do that. Technology is the support of everything that we do to be able to have really safe processes. If I may make some comments about access, resources, models, these are things that can be addressed, and we really have to think how we can better deal with them, really having a unique way of serving health. There are still some points for tension and over which we have to discuss and think, because technology, transparency, data use is something that can really help us come up with a health model which is good to everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. Let me now hand it over to Rogério. Integration of system is something essential. My electronic medical record has to communicate with yours. We created a dashboard at Dalben where our clinical management team and also administrative management team can interact directly with the HMOs. So we have transparency to communicate with payers, families, patients. Technology is available. We just have to be able to use it accordingly to avoid rework and to enhance efficiency. And it encompasses not only medical records at hospitals, but hospitals, transition hospitals, long care facilities. So I hope we can have one single medical record to be shared among everyone. Another thing which I considered essential in this process of integration is teamwork. When you're talking about clinical governance, it's also corporate governance, right? We are all part of public and private companies, and there are best practices for our management. We are all medical managers, and we live in this world of interface between the technical and the management team. And this is something essential. We should have a system of transparency because health is extremely complex and we cannot simply manage things as we used to be. We need a multidisciplinary team. We have to incorporate non-medical teams as well. Integrated governance between clinical and managerial governance is something that can really ensure effective work at bedside, at patient's home. It should all be fully integrated. And many of my white hair come from it, being this bridge between both sides, because this should be our final result, improved outcome, considering really the use of resources. You see, you have gray hair. What about me? My hair's all gone. So you see, I still have got a lot to suffer. Is that what you mean? Because I still have got plenty of hair. Anyway, I think it was such a wonderful talk, very productive and fruitful. It's always great to talk to you. I would like to thank FIS for the invitation. It's so good when we understand that we are all on the same side. We all want the same goal, ultimately, which is improved processes that can provide better clinical management of our patients. So please accept my warm thanks, Rogério, Alexandre, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much, FIS, for the invitation. Stay well, stay safe. Thank you.